Hey everybody, hope and pray that you're doing well. Today as we come to our word from the word. And today that word is intelligence. Intelligence. Now, have you ever had any of those moments where, you just figured out that you knew more than your parents knew? Right? Teenager, man, maybe you knew everything. Parents didn't know anything. And then the older you get, the more you find out that, those adults in your life, they weren't quite as dumb as you thought they were. And then it kind of comes full circle. Then you have kids, and then when they treat you like you're dumb, you say, well, I remember those days. Well, isn't it kind of the same way that we treat God? And see, Israel had gone through this cycle over and over again, the same way that you and I do. That it seems like a generation would rise up and would finally get to that knowledge of doing what God would have them to do. But then the next generation would come, would not know Him because they didn't teach Him, or they just assumed, man, they don't know what they're talking about. Then they would finally come to the point where they understood and had intelligence with God. Well, here today in 1 Samuel chapter 12, we see Samuel addressing the people, and he's making them or helping them remember that, one, that he was not guilty of any of this stuff that he was getting ready to say. They kind of clear him of any guilt. And then he says, but let's look at what we've done. Now look at the people, what we have done together to reject God as king. And I pray as always you're reading all these passages. But today I want us just to look at verses 16 through 18. It says, and this is 1 Samuel chapter 12, starting in verse 16. Now therefore stand and see this great thing which the Lord will do before your eyes. Is today not the wheat harvest? I will call to the Lord. He will send thunder and rain, that you may perceive and see that your wickedness is great, which you have done in the sight of the Lord, in asking a king for yourselves. So Samuel called to the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. See, the thunder and rain was a symbol of judgment at that time. And the fact that he called out to the Lord, right, he was showing them, God was showing them who had the intelligence, right, who was making the wisest decisions, and it was not the people. See, they were doing their own thing. And I don't know, maybe what you may be tempted with today. I mean, we're always tempted to make decisions on our own. And don't get me wrong, God has given us a mind, and He's given us a brain, and He's given us, this knowledge to make wise decisions. But I think sometimes we forget that we still have to bathe everything in prayer. That time and time again, that if the people would have listened to God, if they would have gone to Him in prayer, if they would have been patient to wait and hear what the Lord would tell them to do, they would have never found themselves in all the mess that they did. It's the same way for you and I today. How many times have we gotten ourselves in a mess because we knew better, and then we look back and say, wow, God had already warned me I didn't need to do that. When you find people that have maybe made some grave mistake in their life. And I mean, we've all made mistakes, and no one of us is any better than another for sure. But those moments where you fall into that sin or whatever, that just for that moment, that temporary moment. And then people say, I can't believe that happened. But the way that it happens is because we think that we know better. Pride comes before destruction, and destruction before the fall. That moment that you think you can't fall, that's the moment that you're the most vulnerable. That's what happened to Israel and over and again, that they thought that because they had the ark, but they were untouchable. And then what happens? They lose the ark. They thought that because, they were God's children, that they could do whatever they want. And we saw what happened in the book of Joshua there at Ai, right after the victory at Jericho, one person's sin and how it affected the whole camp. This whole cycle goes on and on. Still going on today, even with the church, how often we come together for a moment and then we let sin creep in. We get back on track, and then we depend on God, and we grow closer, and then we begin to depend on our own intelligence again. We do that in our personal lives. We have those seasons where, there's seasons where, man, it'll be a lot of people at church, and then all of a sudden everybody decides that they know better, and, well, I can miss this Sunday. And when you miss one, you miss another one and another one. And I know COVID hasn't helped that at all, especially gives us more reason to stay away. But why are we still staying away from the Word? Why are we still staying away from quiet time and prayer? It's because we think we know better. So don't fall into the same temptation, because look, I mean, as he was praying, as Samuel was praying, and God answers with this thunder and rain to show the sign of judgment here. I'd hate to be thinking that there would be that same judgment coming on decisions that you and I have made today. Because yes, we serve a loving God, and yes, he's already paid if we are true believers, true Christians, true children of God, then we will not face the eternal punishment of sin, but we still have to face the earthly consequences of them. I'd hate to think that we would hear that thunder and that storm in our lives because of our sin. So today, let's make intelligent choices, but let's not do it on our own understanding. Instead, today, let's lean on God's understanding and his alone. God bless you all, and I pray you have a great, great day.